And yeah, right. I don't know why that girl downstairs, like, I don't know why. I think she's like one of the people that used to live here. That's their family. They told the move-ins to harass me, like do little stupid things. Like, I don't know what she thinks. But I already know she's listening to me. Like, I don't even care, like, because I'm a talk in my own house. I pay my rent. I pay my bills. I mind my own business. I don't bother nobody unless I have to, like, report it if it's real bad, like the air conditioner. And the last neighbors that however was harassing and evil. They have no right to like move their family in here and try to harass me. Like, and this is what people do. Like, they get their family to stalk you, get people to stalk you, because they have this type of like revengefulness inside them. And that gets them nowhere in life. Like, they need to move on from the past. Like, they have no business to revenge me anyway, because I didn't do nothing to my last neighbors. They were invading my space, listening to me talking in my own apartment, harassing me because I'm a Christian. I should have reported him there too, like saying that he was harassing me, like, and stuff, banging the cabinets real loud, slamming his door real loud, on purposely. Like, he's so angry. Like, you're angry. Your sister's like doing bad stuff, like stomping, and doesn't even care. I live downstairs, like real loud. Like, you didn't care about that. Like, you didn't care like to tell your sister to stop when I helped you move a couch in. Like, you can't speak up for somebody. Sometimes you have to speak up for somebody. The people do, like, the people that's caring, that care about other people, you would speak up for them, like, because that person helps you, like, but people don't think like that. I don't know. I know this weirdo downstairs, she keeps following me to room, and she keeps banging and doing little things. Like, I don't even know this girl. I don't know nothing. I never talked to her. I don't know her at all. I don't know where she come from. I just know she lives downstairs. And she's probably, like, doesn't like me because I'm a Christian again. Like, there's people like that. Christian phobes, they don't like you. But I got one of them applications so I can fill it out and say that she's discriminated against me because I'm a Christian. And she's doing harassing things. Like, I'm gonna document all everything she does. Like, write it down in the notebook what she does, because it's considered harassment. And I don't know why she thinks she can listen. Like, she knows that I know she's listening. Like, I'm not gonna say anything so she can find out stuff, important stuff. Like, she's so stupid. Like, I'm not gonna talk. I know about this place. I know you can hear through the walls. I don't have to put my ear against the wall to know somebody's listening. The walls are thin. You don't need to put your ears through the wall to hear something. You could just hear talking. It's basically what I was telling the neighbor. Like, I can hear y'all talking through the walls. Like, it wasn't about me listening against the wall. I wasn't doing that. I can just hear people talking through the walls because the walls are not made. It's not made good structure. It's a thin apartment, thin walls. So you have to watch what you're saying, your privacy and stuff. If you know you live in an apartment and you're really particular about your privacy, you'll watch what you're saying because you know there's eavesdroppers. You gotta like outsmart them. And the reason I know that guy was listening to me because he wrote a note, and then in the note, the only reason he wrote a note was because he heard me talking about it. Like one time I was like, if he has something wrong to say about me, he should like come over and say it. Like, and then all of a sudden he come over here with a note like, and then he came over here with a note all of a sudden because he was listening to what I was saying for the wall. Like, it's not even cool. Like, but yeah, I'm not gonna say anything like I don't want her to listen to. I'm not gonna say anything that I know. I'm not gonna say anything important for her to hear. Like, I don't want. I can always like turn the white noise machine on, or go outside, or go downstairs and talk. And this is what you gotta do living here. When you live by strange people, you know that's following you to room to room, and I call that suspicious behavior. Like, that's suspicious. You're suspicious. You can't say that's suspicious. Like, following me to room to room. You never know like what people's up to. Like, they can be up to like trying to plan something, like hurt me or something physically. I don't know them people. Like, they're acting weird too, like banging and stuff. I don't know her. There's a whole lot of sick people in this world. Like, you gotta watch your, like, you gotta put your guards up and be aware of stuff and protect yourself from craziness and pray to God that he protects you. And plus, I'm like 38 years old. Like, I'm grown. Like, I don't want to be bothered with that immature stuff. Like, whatever she got going on. Like, you can't tell people what to do. Like, you're not going to tell me what to do. You're not going to menopause me. Like, I don't know who she is. Like, whatever. And I think she got a whole husband down there. Like, she needed to, like, contend to her husband. Like, worry about him. Like, worry about her own family. Like, why are you acting like a child? It's the type of behavior as Jezebel. Jezebel and Delilah. One of them type of girls. Dramatic and likes drama. I don't like drama. I'm laid back, chilled. I like to mind my business. I like to read my Bible. I like to be calm. I don't like to be bothered. Like, I don't like being people bothering me or raiding my space. Like, I'm an introvert. Like, what do you expect? I don't like people trying to menopause me, because you can't menopause me, because I ain't listening to nobody. I don't have to listen to anybody telling me not to do whatever, not to read the Bible, not to listen to Christian music. Like, who are you? Like, nobody cares about, like, what she doesn't like. Like, life goes on. Like, shouldn't be that miserable. Like, I don't know. Let's see what they said. Oh, I know what they're talking about. It's about the air conditioner. Like, I sent that video to them. It was like telling me, like, where you need to contact this person. But I'm gonna wait till they send a technical support in for that. But that's just cowardly. Like, that person downstairs will never ever come up here and confront me about what the problem is, because they're a coward. Let's look at the definition of a coward. A coward is one who shows disgraceful fear or timidity. It could be her husband doing that. And then he's acting like a little boy, not an immature man. These people are India, so you know what type of people they are. Like, not all Indians are like that. You see, Indian people are peaceful people, not harassing others. What do you call it? Intolerance. They're intolerant people. They can't take it. If they can't take it, move to a different apartment. Not tolerant of views, belief, or behavior that different from one's own. I just bought a book on that. I just bought a book like a minutes ago, and I can't wait to read them. Especially the Bible commentary one. The Bible commentary. Let's see which one. The Bible commentary is the Believer's Bible Commentary. Yeah, but I got my eyes on them too. They got their eyes on me. I got my eyes on them watching me. Yes, it's intolerant to say Christianity is the only true religion. In fact, it's rarely intolerant to say that Jesus is the way, the truth, and life, and that no one can get to God except through him. As Jesus himself said in John chapter 14, verse 6, it is also intolerant to state that there is no other name under heaven other than Jesus by which a person can be forgiven of his sins, as Peter said in Acts chapter 4, verse 12. It is intolerant to say that there is only one true God, not all them false religions, them Hindu gods that they worship, them Hindu freak gods that look like demons, or they do look like demons, demonic animals. John chapter 14, verse 6, it's also intolerant to state that there is no other name under heaven other than Jesus by which a person can be forgiven of his sin, as Peter said in Acts chapter 4, verse 12. It is intolerant to say that there is only one true God, as Jesus said in John chapter 17, verse 3. It is also intolerant to say that trying to enter into heaven in any other way than Jesus is to thief, be a thief and a robber, as Jesus said in John chapter 10, verse 1. Jesus was intolerant when he said that he is the one who reveals God to people. Luke chapter 10, verse 22. Jesus was even more intolerant of religious hypocrisy when he condemned the religious know-it-alls and called them hypocrites and deceivers, Matthew chapter 23, verse 25, verse 26. Jesus was extremely intolerant of the buying and the selling of the temple when he drove the people out of it by force and overturned their money tables, John chapter 2, verse 13, verse 16. Jesus was intolerant of hatred when he said, love your enemies, Luke chapter 6, verse 27. Jesus was intolerant of ignorance when he taught the people truth, Matthew chapter 5. And Jesus was intolerant of prejudice when he gave the parable of the good news Samaritan, Luke chapter 10, verse 3, verse 37. Yes, Christianity is intolerant because its founder, Jesus, was intolerant. Christianity is intolerant of false gods and false gospels. Why is it so intolerant? Because it's shaped after Jesus. It is intolerant because there is a hell in Jesus, who is God in flesh, John chapter 1, verse 14, Colossians chapter 2, verse 9, who died for our sins, 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 24, has made the only way to forgiveness a reality through him alone, John chapter 14, verse 6, and without him comes damnation. On the other hand, Christianity is very intolerant. It teaches to be forgiving, Matthew chapter 8, verse 21, verse 22, which Hinduism doesn't teach that. It teaches about revenge the person. That's not going to solve anything. Jesus taught us to love and to heal and to be examples of kindness and truth in the world. Jesus was intolerant of religious hypocrisy and bigotry, and he was very intolerant of false teachers. He was intolerant of pride, rebellion, sin, covetousness, and adultery, lying, cheating, and stealing, fornicating, and murder. He was intolerant of husbands treating their wives poorly, and he was intolerant of pain and was saddened by suffering. Yet at the same time, he demonstrated the greatness, love, and patience with those who were guilty of all these things. Why? Because he is God and full of flesh, incarnated love, incarnate righteousness, incarnate humanity. The whole issue of whether or not Christianity is intolerant lies in who Jesus is, what he claimed and what he did. If what Jesus said and did is true, then Christianity isn't intolerant. It is simply true, and it is the world that is intolerant of the truth. They're the ones intolerant of the truth. Likewise, it's true that Jesus lived. It is true that Jesus walked on water, Matthew chapter 14, verse 25, verse 27. It is true that Jesus healed the sick, Matthew chapter 8, verse 5, verse 13. It is true that Jesus claimed the storm with a command, Mark chapter 4, verse 39. It is true that Jesus raised the dead, Matthew chapter 9, verse 25. John chapter 11, verse 43, verse 44. It is true that Jesus claimed to be God, John chapter 5, verse 18. It is true that Jesus was killed on the cross. It is true that Jesus rose from the dead. Luke chapter 24, verse 39, and John 20, verse 27. And these are not feeble claims made by crazy people who wanted to gain power and fame. These are the claims of Christ himself and of those who followed him and suffered for him and died for him. Either it is all true or it's not. Either Jesus performed miracles or he did not. Either Jesus rose from the dead or he did not, based solely and completely on Jesus, on who Jesus is and what he did. Christianity is the true, and by necessary all other religions that disagree with Jesus are false, wrong. Truth is by nature intolerant of falsehood. If Christianity is not true, then Jesus was not God, then Jesus did not do miracles, and Jesus did not heal the sick. then Jesus did not walk on water, then Jesus did not die and rise from the dead after 3 days. But if he did do these things, then Christianity alone is true, since in all the religions in the world, only Christianity is the person of Jesus, and Jesus said that he alone is the way and truth and life. John chapter 14, verse 6, if they got a problem with that, you take that with the living God, Jesus, because he says he's the only way to salvation. Christianity is the only as intolerant as Jesus is true. So who is Jezebel? The one who was a she-devil. The one who was a she-devil. Scripture is 1 Kings chapter 16, verse 31. The heartless woman. Just like I feel that the person downstairs with a bloody history belie the name she bore. For Jezebel means chastity, free from carnal connection. But by nature she was a most licentious woman. She was a voluptuary, with all the tory arts of a wanton woman. Thus no name could have been more appropriate for such a despised female. She was the daughter of Jezebel, king of the Zidonians, and both king and priest of Baal worshippers. False gods she was a worshipper of. The Philistines were a remarkable race and outstanding as the great maritime peoples of the ancient world, but they were idolaters who regarded Jehovah as only a local deity, the god of the land. Their gods were Baal and Asherah, or Ashtoreth, with their innumerable number of priests, 450 of whom Ahab installed in the massive temple to the sun god he had built in Samaria. Another 400 priests were housed in a sanctuary, and Jezebel erected for them, in which he fed at her own table. Crude and licentious rites were associated with the worship of Baal. Jezebel sprang from an idolatrous stock, the same source which afterward produced the greatest soldier of equality, Hannibal, whose temper was not more daring and unforgiving than hers. It was this heathen woman who married Ahab, king of northern Israel, and who in doing was guilty of a rash, impulsive act which resulted in evil consequences. As a Jew, Ahab sinned against his Hebrew faith and taken as his wife the daughter of a man whose very name, Ephraim, meant a man of Baal. How or where the strong-minded adulterous woman and the weak and spineless king met, we are not told. Doubtless seeing her, Ahab was fascinated by her beauty and forcefulness of character and fell for her. And Jezebel, ambitious and proud, eagerly seized the opportunity of sharing the throne of a king. Any man able to resist the wiles of a beautiful but wicked woman possessed his true heroism. Joseph succeeded against the lovely yet lustful wife of Potiphar. But Caesar and Anthony, after conquering almost the whole world, were conquered by the fair but the full Cleopatra. Let conquerors boost their fields of fame, who in virtue arms, a young spirit against beauty's charms, who feels her brightness yet defiles her frown, is the best, bravest conqueror of them all. Ahab, captivated by Jezebel, took her to wife, and went and served Baal and worshipped him. All the other sins of Ahab were light compared with his marriage with Jezebel and the serving of Baal that followed 1 Kings chapter 16, verse 31, and see Micah chapter 6, verse 16. For over 60 years, adultery had made terrible inroads upon the life and ways of the Hebrews. It meant more to them than breaking of the first two commandments of the law. It produced spiritual and moral disgregation, which was accentuated by Jezebel's determined effort to destroy the worship of Jehovah. Let us try to delineate the character of Jezebel, a name which has come to mean in all ages a striking probe for seductive power, worldly, subtlety, and wickedness of the worst type. She possessed an extraordinary force of character. Jezebel was no ordinary woman, such was her demeanor, that she attracted immediate attention. Edward B. Cole wrote of her as the calamity lady Macbeth of Hebrew history. Though by no means an attractive personage, she was invested by her extraordinary force of character and her appalling fate with a tragic grandeur which belongs to no other woman of the Bible. While the Bible does not analyze or even portray her character, but simply sets forth the events in which she bore so prominent a part, yet as we read between the lines, we cannot fail to see her as a woman of prodigious force of intelligence and will. The sacred narrative does not record that she possessed any of the finer, nobler feminine qualities. She knew nothing of the restraint of higher principles. Savage and relentless, this proud and strong-minded woman carried out her foul schemes. Yup, schemes. They have schemes downstairs. She does to scheme to her foul scheme to eavesdrop on somebody. A gift woman, she prostituted all her gifts for the fodder of evil, and her misdirected talents became a curse. Persuasive, her influence was wrongly directed. Resolute above other women, she used her strength of character to destroy a king and her own offspring, as well as to pollute the life of a nation. She was an adulterer. Baal had no more dedicated devotee than Jezebel, and none could match her for zeal. For the worship of Esther, the famous goddess of the Zalians, as zealous and liberal maintenance of hundreds of adulterous priests clearly proves. Not content with establishing the idol worship of her own country and her husband's court, she sought to convert Israel to Baal worship. 2 heathen sanctuaries were built, one at Samaria with its 450 priests, and the other at Jezreel with its 400 priests. In a more relentless fashion, Jezebel tried to drive out the true prophets of Jehovah from the land and thus become the first religious female persecutor in history. From her adulterous father, a high priest of Esther, she inherited her fanatical religious enthusiasm, which inspired her to terminate the worship of the true and living God, and almost succeeded in an attempt. The falling of nations with all the immoralities and crude superstitions of such a demoralizing cult as Baalism brought upon the scene the chief of the true prophets, Elijah. He appeared suddenly before Ahab and predicted 3 years of drought, and at the end of the period unexpectedly appeared again and challenged the 50 prophets of Baal to a supreme test of power on the top of Mount Carmel in language of unparalleled audacity. Elijah taunted them with the importance of her boosted deities in a strange contest and the trumpet's vindication of Jehovah. The people seized the priests of Baal and massacred them, and Ahab was completely frightened. She was a corrupt tree. Our Lord used a striking figure to illustrate the continuing influence of evil emanating from a lifestyle destitute of godly principles. Do men gather grapes of thorns of figs, of fiscals? A corrupt tree brings forth evil fruit. You can tell by their fruit they're evil. A corrupt tree can bring forth good fruit. Matthew chapter 7, verse 16, verse 20. Jezebel was a rotten root and branch, and thus everything connected with her was contaminated. How appropriate are the lines of Shakespeare, as we think of Jezebel, who in her strength of character, lust for power, remorseless rejection of godliness, and unshaken and resolute activity to abolish all that interferes with the fulfillment of her wicked designs. The tragedy of Naboth and his vineyard reveals how despiteful a woman Jezebel was. Life was cheap to such a female who had murder in her veins. Her father, Jezebel, murdered his possessors. Brought up in such a home and estranged in massacre, what else could we expect but a she-devil, as Jezebel became? As a typical orator despite, Jezebel was prepared to murder, and her stride toward the desired objection as the innocent of Naboth's vineyard reveals King Ahab happened to see this fruitful vineyard and inquired as to its owner, learning it belonged to Naboth. Ahab called him to the palace and offered to buy the vineyard, but it was not for sale. It had belonged to his forefathers and had become precious to Naboth. And as an Israelite, Ahab understood his desire to retain it. Thwarted in what he coveted, Ahab took to his bed and refused food. Then Jezebel came upon the scene, learning what had happened, and as a foreigner from a country where the wishes of a king were never questioned, she revealed herself as a woman of accumulated authority when she consoled Ahab by saying, "Arise and eat bread, and let thine heart be merry. I will give thee the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite." Jezebel ordered by letter stamped with the word seal a public feast. She also instituted an assembly of the people of Jezreel to try the pious Naboth for blasphemies against God and the king. Naboth was arrested, tried, and condemned on the false witness secured by Jezebel. She found these witnesses in order to appear within the bounds of the law, and found guilty. Naboth was stoned until his innocent life was beaten out of him, and Ahab took possession of much coveted vineyard. But the blood of the godly, Naboth did not cry out in vain. God called Elijah out of his retirement to go to Ahab and pronounce the fearful doom awaiting the murderous pair and their unholy seed. The prophet told the king of his fate. In a palace where the dogs lick the blood of Naboth shall dogs lick the blood, even thine. This prophecy was fulfilled shortly after its pronouncement, for war broke out between the Israelites and the Syrians, and Ahab, while riding in his chariot, received his death wound. The blood-soaked chariot was taken to the spring, which ran through Naboth's vineyard, and the dogs came and licked up the bloody border. Concerning Jezebel, Elijah said, "The dogs shall eat Jezebel by the wall of Jezreel." And shortly we shall see how this prophecy was also fulfilled to the very letter. The death of the womb Jezebel had stirred up to work wickedness in the sight of the Lord, revealed her to be as incapable of remorse as of fear. There was no sign of repentance in her, as she went out proudly to meet her prophesied doom. She who had been appointed and anointed as the avenger of Jehovah, and he sent out his grim task of meting out justice to those who had polluted the land. Jezebel's son and grandson met Jehu in the blood-stained vineyard Naboth had once possessed. Jehu slew Jezebel's son, the king of Israel, and her grandson was overtaken in flight and was slain. The still proud, defiant queen mother knew her last hour was not far away, and great-grandmother, though she took time to arrange her hair and paint her sad face, and looked out at the window to greet Jehu as he passed by. Perhaps as Martin suggests, Jezebel did not paint her face from any motive of contrary or vanity. She knew that death was ready to take her, and therefore she determined to die like a queen. As Cleopatra, when about to die, robbed herself in festal garments, so Jezebel painted her eyes with antimony, and placed her dew crown upon her head, and then mounted to the palace tower. She watched the thundering advance of Jehu's chariot. This one touch of grandeur and full in her foul life gave rise to the bitter taunt, a painted Jezebel, which came into vogue in England during the 16th century, when, as Edith Dean reminds us, painting the face was accepted as The Primifici Infinite said, woman had loose morals. She had loose morals. Certainly no woman's name in history has become so commonly accepted as a synonym for wickedness. She died a horrible death. The climax claimed that Jehu entered the city gate, reaching the palace. He took upon to with a window, from which came the taunting voice of Jezebel. Is it peace, though, Zimri, thou murder of thy master? She a taunt mad on her victorious enemy, and seeing the two and eunuchs standing at the window with the defiant queen, and he shouted up to them, who is on my side? Who throw her down? They obeyed and threw her out of the window, and as she fell, the walls were sprinkled with her blood, and below her were the soldiers with their spears, and the horses to treat her underfoot, and the hungry dogs waiting for her flesh. The trump Jehu entered the palace over Jezebel's dead body. As he ate and drank, he remembered that one who had just died, as prophesied, had been a queen and the mother of kings, so he ordered, go see this cursed woman and bury her. And they went to bury her, but they found no more of her than the skull and the feet and the palms of her hands. So died Jezebel, the adulterer, the tyrant, the murderess. She has sown to the wind and reaped the whirlwind, and many of the godly in Israel must have felt that while Jezebel held evil sway over the land, the mills of God seemed to grind slowly. They came to realize, however, that they grind easily, surely, and small. Thus Jezebel encountered a mysterious, terrible, and divine retribution. There are those who reject such a lurid description of the fate of the wicked who, like Jezebel, defy and deny God. But the denial of divine word still stands. That Christ is to be revealed from heaven to take revenge on those who spurn God and who reject the saving gospel of his beloved Son. 2 Thessalonians chapter 1, verse 5, verse 10. Ariel, we turn from our portrait of one of the most wicked women who ever breathed there, are one of the two lessons to glean from her deeply stained record. No matter from what angle we approach the life of Jezebel, she stands out as a beacon to both nations and individuals. That wages of sin is death. Further from this great tragic figure of literature and of history, we learn how important it is for the influence of a wife and mother to be on the side of all that is good and noble, as Ahab's evil genius. Jezebel was the absolute negation of all God meant woman to be, namely a true helpmeet of man. Ahab, we read, was stirred up by Jezebel, but stirred up in the wrong direction. When a man marries a woman because of her beauty or forceful personality, or marries a wicked woman, or one opposed to his religion, he usually courts sorrow, heartache, and disappointment. Jezebel retained her obstinate, unbending character to the very end. The death of the man whose life she polluted brought no repentance. What a different story would have been written if she would only learn how to stir up her husband and children to love God and follow good works. 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 6, verse 2. No, 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 6, and 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 13. Her restricted talent, however, brought upon her her curse. The evil she perpetrated was done under the guise of religion, just as the crudities of the Inquisition and the tortures of Smithfield were. Finally, evil and craft and godliness bring their own reward, and the wicked reap what they sow. Retribution overtook Jezebel when her body was thrown out of the window to be torn and mangled, and then eaten by dogs as a daughter of the devil. She suffers a worse retribution in the realms of the doom. Milton wrote of the gods, rejecter as his hymn of the Almighty Father, heard, headlong flaming with hinderest ruin and contribution, down to the bottomless prediction, there to dwell in adamant change and perennial fires, who durst defy the opponent to arms.